Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Harrington, and welcome to the Everything Sports Podcast. I'm alongside here today with Avery Farmer and Jack James. We're really excited to be launching this new podcast for you. We're going to have all kinds of cool sports stuff coming up in the show. We are going to be posting on Mondays and Fridays for you. But anyway, we're really excited. The first thing we're getting into today is the MLB playoffs, which will be starting on Tuesday with the American League wildcard game. A lot is surrounding that topic right now. The Yankees just clinched a playoff spot last night, but that last spot is just completely up for grabs right now. Astros have a one-game lead over the Twins and Angels. So both the Twins and Angels have a good chance. What do you guys think about this last wildcard spot right now?
Well, I definitely think that it's a close race, as you know, we have the Twins and the Angels behind the Astros just by one game, and both have big series coming up this weekend. The one I think that is obviously the most important to me is the Angels and Rangers series, because we know that the Angels they've played well, but then right at the last second you got Texas who just clinches that spot, and the Angels, I think they're just going to be really motivated to play in that game, and I think they're my pick definitely to win that series and to get into the wild card game.
And what do you think about that, Jack?
I am definitely excited for this weekend. Houston, to be honest, I really like Houston. They're a good young team. They got guys like Carlos Gomez, but then you look at the Angels, and they got guys like Mike Trout, probably one of the better players in the MLB to this day, and definitely a future Hall of Famer. But, it's just, you kind of got to wait and see. But I would have to say the Angels, like you said, Avery, they're going to be really motivated because they're going up against a team they could face in the future in this playoffs, They are going up against a good team. While Houston, they're going up against a team who they're done. They're on the backs. They're done for the year. And so I think, this should be a bit easier for Houston, though, because, they just got an easier series. And then Twins, they're going up against a tough Kansas City lineup for 3 games. So my pick to make this wild card is the Houston Astros.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Jack on that one. The Astros are clearly in the driver's seat right now. They are playing the Diamondbacks, who, they didn't have a terrible season, but they're done. They're nowhere near making the playoffs. And with Houston, this team is playing some really good baseball right now. They've got a one-game lead. They won a couple nights ago against the Mariners, a 6-3 win, a comeback win. Houston's looking really well. This team has really surprised everyone this whole season. Houston's got all the control. The Twins, they got a big series coming up with the Royals as well. Royals probably aren't going to be playing their big guys as they want to rest them for the postseason. But and then the Angels, it's just tough with a team that's already in the playoffs. So I think Houston has all the control right now.
Yeah, I totally, like I said, especially with that one-game lead, really, if they win 2 games, they have a much better chance. And you look at Houston, all those terrible years they used to have, and all of a sudden this year, they're trading everyone away and bringing in a whole new group of guys, including Carlos Gomez and some guys who have, great players like Jose, what's his name, Jose Altuve or something like that. Altuve, but just some great guys on that squad, so can't wait to see them play this weekend.
Yeah, and to add on the Astros as well, they also made a big trade with the Oakland Athletics at the trade deadline. They acquired starting pitcher Scott Kazmir from the A's in exchange for a couple of prospects. So that's definitely going to be a big help up there with their ace, Dallas Keuchel, who certainly could be nominated for that AL Cy Young Award. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Astros play into the postseason. Hopefully they get there, but they are going to have to fight hard against the Diamondbacks this next weekend.
Yeah.
Go Go ahead.
Yeah, and I to add on what Jackson said about the Houston Astros and just I mean, what a turnaround, you know? This team was just made fun of and just ridiculed by just everyone and now, you know,
Yeah.
they have probably the best chance out of these three teams to make the postseason, you know? And
Hmm.
it's really amazing. I think I just there's no words to describe it except a great turnaround.
Yeah, you look back at, just some old years. Like, I mean, they were just a terrible team. I mean, for a while, they're wearing this, like, some sort of different type of color of red, and, I mean, they were just missing every playoffs. I mean, there were some seasons, I think, maybe a little while ago, where they didn't even get 50 wins. And, I mean, that's just embarrassing.
Yeah.
Although, yeah.
And what I was going to add was that is there's probably a team we're forgetting that also had a major turnaround this season, the Minnesota Twins. I mean, let's be honest, this team, since moving to Target Field, they've made the playoffs once in their first year, and they've had, I think, like 490 lost seasons in a row, and this is a major turnaround for this team. You know, when we were in May and June, everybody was like, oh, well, the Twins are doing good, but they're not going to be able to hold it up. And now they have a chance to make the playoffs for the first time in a long time, so it's good to see the Twins back in it.
Yeah, the thing about the Twins, though, is they started out, good. They had a good first half of the season, and then they hit the All-Star break, and all of a sudden they just went down. Like, I mean, it was really bad for the Twins there. But, they brought up guys like Buxton, and, I mean, Sano, man, he's like mini Big Poppy. I mean, he is just a monster. He's got a huge, like, just bat. And, I mean, they kind of turned around their, like, slump. Because they had probably a terrible slump that could have sunk them down to, like, a 60-win, 100-loss season. But, they turned that around.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we discussed that enough. And so, moving on to another playoff-related topic is the NL wild card and just the NL division series. What do you guys expect from the Cubs and the Pirates in that game?
Well, for me, I think this is no doubt going to be perhaps the greatest game of this entire postseason, I think. I mean, Cubs and Pirates, this NL Central division this year has been unbelievable, unlike any division we've ever seen in baseball. So, for the Cubs and Pirates, any other year these two teams would be playing in the NL division series, but unfortunately they have to go at each other in the wild card, and we assume it's going to be Garrett Cole and Jake Arrieta on the mound for their respective teams. I mean, Jake Arrieta, 20 wins, below 1 ERA after the All-Star break. This kid is unbelievable. He's pitched no-hitters into the sixth more than 2 or 3 times since then. He's amazing, and I think the Cubs are going to be at a disadvantage because they're going to probably be at Pittsburgh. But, I mean, the reason that this Cubs team, I think, to have a chance of winning this game is because of Jake Arrieta. And they also have guys like Chris Bryant has been doing all right with the Cubs lately, but then you have guys like Anthony Rizzo. He's been on fire for the Cubs.
Yeah, kid, man.
And he's been doing a heck of a job there in Chicago. So that NL wild card game, I'll come back to that in a little bit, but it's just going to be fantastic.
Well, yeah, you look at the NL Central. So they are the only division in the whole entire MLB to have a team over 600 and not only just one. 2 teams. So, I mean, 2 teams over 600, that is just pretty big, especially in the same division. I mean, I don't know if that means something, but, heck, we'll just have to wait and see to the playoffs. So, let's also, real quick, let's talk about the Blue Jays and their turnaround season.
Yeah, it's been a heck of a year for the Toronto Blue Jays. I mean, at the All-Star break, this team was 1 game below 500, and then obviously they made that stunning deal to acquire Troy Tulowitzki from the Colorado Rockies, and they also, I believe, got David Price. So, I mean, it's been a heck of a season for the Blue Jays to come and turn the season around. It's going to be a fun postseason for the Blue Jays. Not only have they had a incredible turnaround season from the All-Star break, but I mean it's the first time in 22 years this team has made the playoffs. I mean a lot has changed since then, and Toronto I think is definitely a team I'm rooting for in the postseason. I just think all this talent and stuff is going to pay off for them. I mean they've also got probably one of, if not the best rotation in the playoffs right now. Um, they've got guys like Marcus Stroman, Marco Estrada, Mark Burley, David Price. I mean, this list goes on and on. So it's going to be fun to see who will go in game one. I think David Price would go, but also I could see some other guys in there as well.
I
Yeah.
think.
So go
Uh,
ahead, Avery.
I think one of the biggest factors is that they're at 500 on the road. That's a really impressive thing, being at 500 on the road overall this season. And lots of teams have great home records. It's not that amazing. They have one of the best, but that 39-39 on the road is a lot better than most teams. And I mean, the Yankees do beat that, but, like, as you can see, like, the Astros, they're 31-47, and the Twins are 37-44. So that can be a big difference in how, they approach their playoff series.
Yeah, but good news, Blue Jays fans, and bad news, Tampa Bay fans. But tonight, Troy Tulowitzki will be returning from a pretty long injury. I mean, it was pretty long, as I believe, since September 12th. He hurt his ribs actually and his back, but he should be returning tonight in the lineup. So he'll be in 7th. So yeah, he's back and ready to play.
Yeah, this is going to be huge for the Blue Jays to have him back. I mean, they have still been doing well without him, but I mean, you look at the numbers when he's in the lineup, it just really shows you how big of a threat the Blue Jays could be because, even though they won the AL East, I don't think many people thought they'd be the best team in the American League, and they're trending in that direction now. So, I mean, it's going to be fun to see where Troy Tulowitzki takes this team.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to take a quick break and be back in just a minute. And we're back at the Everything Sports Podcast, and Jackson, you want to ask us some questions?
All right, guys, so here it is, NCAA football here, Saturday, coming up, and we got some good games this week. I'm going to give you guys a little list of 6 games. I want you guys to tell me, what do you think is going to be the best game? All right, so first, we are going to start out, first, let's go ahead and put up West Virginia versus Oklahoma. We got number 23 West Virginia versus number 15 Oklahoma. And don't forget that we also have, I'm kind of looking towards this game, but maybe number 3 Mississippi versus number 25 Florida. Maybe an upset there. And then third game, Mississippi State, Texas A&M. And fourth game, we have Notre Dame, Clemson. Fifth game, Arizona, number 18 Stanford. And finally, number 12 Alabama, and number 8 Georgia.
All right, I'll go first. Yeah. I was gonna say for me it's Alabama, Georgia. I mean this is gonna be a heck of a game. 2 big SEC rivals. You look at Alabama; they're 3-1. Obviously, had a disappointing loss a couple weeks ago to Ole Miss, which certainly hurt their ranking. And Georgia is a team trending upward at this point at number 8. Actually, to correct you, Jack, Alabama is number 13, not number 12.
My bad.
But that's all right. And, this is a really big game for both teams. It's a game that will affect them for the rest of the season. Alabama at this point cannot afford to take another loss. They've had trouble in their season series against Ole Miss over the years. That's a thing they have to put behind them. Georgia as well. They had a tough season last year, but they are looking really good at this point this year, this early. And so for me, it really comes down to who wants it more, and I'm gonna have to go with Alabama this one. Even though they're the lower team, I think they have really put this Ole Miss loss behind them. So I think it's a must-win game for Alabama. But I think Georgia could afford to take a loss. But for Alabama, I think if they lose this game, they just don't have what it takes to make the playoff.
I definitely agree with what Matt's saying about the Alabama game, but I'm gonna pick Georgia. I think Alabama's confidence is really low right now, and I just think that Georgia, they're gonna be nervous and they're gonna be pressured, but I think they can maybe pull that off. But
And
other from that,
can I just say one thing real quick, guys? Sorry, I forgot to mention that this game also, so it'll be at 2:30, but I just also want to let you guys know this will be in Georgia too, so just remember that.
That's definitely a factor, and
that's huge.
Yeah, but this still isn't. For me, this definitely isn't my main game I'm gonna want to watch. I think the main game I want to watch is Stanford at Arizona. I mean, Stanford. First week they just come in and Northwestern, big upset, and everyone's like, "Oh, I guess Stanford wasn't as good as we thought they were." Then they win the three straight games, and they've really just turned this season around from a tough loss from Northwestern and going up against Arizona, who's also 3-1. I think this is a really big game for Stanford and Arizona as well, and especially Stanford because Cal, who's been a total shocker, who's 4-0 right now. It's probably going to be a pretty easy win over a Washington State team that's not very good right now. So I think this is really critical for Stanford to win right here, and this will prove we're better than USC and that we can win again.
Yeah, and with that Arizona-Stanford game, Stanford, like you said, they've had a good turnaround after a tough Week 1 loss. But for Arizona, I think the same goals and mindset. They're 3-1. They did have a rough loss against, I believe it was UCLA. So it is going to be tough for Arizona. If Arizona can win this game, that's absolutely huge because then they go into momentum. They do have some couple of tough games at the end of the season against USC and Utah, which I'll get to Utah in a little bit because they have certainly been an interesting team so far this year. But I think this Arizona-Stanford game has certainly been a game that's going to be overlooked by your average college football fan. But yeah, that Arizona-Stanford game is certainly one I would like to see as well.
Yeah, so real quick, who is your upset for the week? Let me mention some that could be a possible upset. For example, Florida beating number 25 Florida being number 3 Ole Miss. Or we also have, possible, imagine Kansas State upset number 20 Oklahoma State. And I'm just going to go ahead and say a big upset right here is Iowa defeating number 19 Wisconsin. So which one you think will happen there?
I'm going to go with your one of Iowa over Wisconsin. Iowa is 4-0 and Wisconsin is 3-1. So it's tough when you look at it. When you look at Wisconsin's schedule here, they did play Alabama, but they hung with them for the most part, and they've had 3 pretty consistent wins. So I think Wisconsin, they have certainly been below what everyone expected them to be so far, but I think that's because of what they played against Alabama. But then you look at Iowa, and they have certainly been impressive. The only thing that gets in Iowa's way is their schedule. They haven't played too many tough teams, but I definitely think Iowa does have a chance to beat Wisconsin, but it is going to be tough to see. But I think out of all the games, Iowa certainly has a chance to beat Wisconsin.
I'm gonna go off this chart and point out a possible upset. I think Northwestern at Minnesota. Minnesota with the upset. Minnesota's defense has just been unstoppable. 2 close games lately, but we saw how good their defense was against that tough TCU team that has been highly criticized because of that game.
I don't know lately we've ever seen a defense like this in Minnesota. I mean, they've always been, if they're going to have a good side, it's been offense. But finally this year they got a good defense in the backfield there. I mean, it's looking good on defense for Minnesota, so who knows? Maybe if they come out there and just, get some big plays on defense, big tackles for losses, sacks, and even some fumble recoveries and interceptions.
Yeah,
And sorry, I'm going to interrupt here.
Yeah.
My other upset pick, I mean, I don't know. This is a really bold statement. I really don't think it will happen, but I could maybe possibly see Arizona beat UCLA. Or Arizona State, sorry, over UCLA. Arizona State, they just completely embarrassed themselves last week against the other Los Angeles team, USC. They lost 42-14. A lot of people were looking forward to that game, and Arizona State just, ugly game for them. But, I think it's certainly a possibility, but UCLA is completely trending in the right direction right now. I think they're the team that's getting underrated the most, but, it's just going to be interesting to see how this game plays out. I still think UCLA will win, but I definitely think I wouldn't be surprised if Arizona State pulled this one out.
Yeah, as adding to that, I think another team that season is really in jeopardy is the Baylor team right now.
Yeah.
Texas Tech, they just have been really good, and it's really been surprising with that amazing win over Arkansas, and they barely lost to TCU. So
that
was crazy.
Yeah,
game.
Avery, did you see that how Baylor got Wait, was it Baylor? Who did Utah just? Okay, never mind. I'm talking about something else here. I was thinking of Utah beating Baylor, but they must have beat someone else. Who? Does anyone remind me of?
Michigan, Utah,
Michigan.
Michigan.
Yeah, Michigan beat BYU last week.
No, but I was thinking of how Utah beat some team like was 63.
Oh, Oregon.
20. Oregon, yes.
Utah, I was actually reiterating something. I said a little bit earlier that I was going to go back and look at Utah. I mean, last year, 2-3 years ago, I would have laughed if you would have told me Utah would be in contention for the college football playoff. I mean, this team, in my opinion, is my underdog pick throughout this entire season. Looking at Utah, I think they've got themselves a top 10 rating now. I mean, this team went in to Eugene, Oregon to face the Ducks. And yes, the Ducks certainly haven't been as good as we expected. But I mean, they completely thrashed this team. So, I mean, Utah, let me pull up their schedule here. But, I mean, I think right now, Utah, they are certainly going in the right direction. Everything is looking good for this team. They do have a game against Cal this week, which has been surprising. At how well Cal has been doing, but Utah,
no, that's Washington State. Sorry to correct you. They're playing Washington State this week. Cal is.
No, I'm. Oh well, are you sure?
Yeah, Cal is playing Washington State. I think Utah has a bye week this week. So they're not.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
That's week 6. It's okay.
Yep. Next week they play Cal, but then they also have to play USC and UCLA later in the season. But the good news for Utah is that those games are separated because some of these other teams they have to play a couple of close games like back to back against ranked teams, and they are at home against Cal. And they are at home against UCLA, but they're at USC. So right now, Utah, I mean, this team is looking good in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And Utah has just their offense, it's been offense, and you can say that the Oregon game was close, but really it was just Utah all the way, and then Oregon sort of sneaked in a couple points at the end to make it close.
But
yeah, they
almost third quarter. If I'm correct, wasn't the third quarter like a 28-0 deficit?
Yeah, yep, it was.
Utah?
Well, yes, they scored 28 points in the third quarter. Oregon scored 0 in the third quarter, so early on it was close, but then in the second quarter, this momentum on that game completely changed. Travis Wilson, quarterback for Utah, throws 4 touchdowns, 227 yards in that win. So obviously, Oregon, this, as I'm looking this up, according to the CBS Sports article, Oregon has not lost by this much since 1977 at home. So obviously a
Jeez.
big loss. And Utah was the upset pick in this one. So, I mean, big win for them.
Definitely, definitely. Another thing I want to say is, I mean, I think let's just, let's talk about the rankings here and who's, gonna burst this bubble and who's gonna, get out. We've seen Oregon just, they've not been doing well, and it's probably due to Mariota gone, but they're out of the top 25. Florida and Cal, both teams that haven't made it into or especially Cal hasn't made it into the top 25 in a while, and Stanford, USC right next to each other. What do you think is going to be the biggest move from this?
Well, I think right now when we're looking towards the bottom of the rankings, we see a team like Oklahoma State who's 4-0. To me, I don't really know Oklahoma State's position right now. They've got a lot of tough games coming up. And while I'm looking at this, it looks like they have 4 more games against ranked teams, including TCU and Baylor. So, to me, Oklahoma State, I don't really know if they can hang in there when it comes time to the football or the playoff time. But Wisconsin, I think they're trending up in the right direction as Big Ten play is starting to begin for them. But teams like Alabama really can make a move this week if they beat Georgia. Same with Clemson if they were to dethrone Notre Dame this weekend. So it's going to be tough to see, but I think definitely some of these teams that have big games this weekend, like Alabama, Georgia, are in jeopardy if they can't pull out a win.
All right, so guys, let's real quick. I think I already know who everyone's Heisman pick is.
Justin Fournette. Just two words for that. I mean, he has just been running crazy against an Auburn defense that they thought was really good at the run, but Fournette he proved them wrong and wreaked havoc on that defense. And now he's, LSU has just really been excelling, and it's really due to him.
Avery, sorry to interrupt you here, but it's actually Leonard Fournette, not Justin Fournette.
But okay.
I'm thinking of Justin Forsett.
Yeah, Forsett.
Sorry about that.
But yeah, so we can keep that short because I think all you need to do is just go look up some highlights, and you already know that. But one last thing here I got for you guys. I want everyone to predict who do you think is gonna be in that championship game.
All right. I'm going out on a limb right here, but I definitely think it's gonna be Michigan State versus Ole Miss. And a lot of people would say, Ohio State, they're obviously the favorite, but I think Michigan State's passing attack and their defense, it's just so balanced out that Michigan State, if what it's gonna look like, what it's like now, then Michigan State played TCU. I think TCU really has been struggling on offense, so I think that they're gonna beat them, and then Ole Miss versus Ohio State, I'm picking Ole Miss.
Yeah, and to add on that, Ohio State has certainly had an easy schedule so far compared to a team like Michigan State, who has already had to go through a team like Oregon, and they have Michigan coming up. And you know what? Actually, Michigan State and Ohio State will meet on November 21st, second to last week of the season. Like, that is probably the most looked forward to matchup of the entire season, because right now these teams are 1-2. It's going to be close. For my championship pick, to be honest with you, I would not be surprised if I saw a team like Utah slide into the playoff. I don't think Utah has enough, obviously, to beat a team like Ohio State. But for me, I still think that this playoff right now is going to be between Ohio State and Michigan State. Ole Miss, they're 4-0, but I just don't know if it's going to last. They're in the SEC. They've got games with like Alabama, or pardon me, sorry, not Alabama. They've got Florida, Texas A&M, LSU, and Mississippi State all to come and play. So for me to see Ole Miss going that far, winning all those games, I don't know if it's gonna really happen. But Michigan State and Ohio State, I think. But I really want to see how Utah plays out these not last few, we're only just beginning in the season, but I just want to see how they play out the rest of the season. But for me, I think Ohio State and Michigan State is my championship pick right now.
Yeah, so for me, I'm going to go with TCU. I'm going to go with a long shot here. I'm going to go with TCU, and also, just like you, Avery, I'm going to go with Ole Miss. And out of that, I say Ole Miss is going to take it all this year. I say Ole Miss is going to win it.
Bold prediction. We'll have to see what happens.
Yeah. All right. So, as we talk about college football, let's talk about more professional football. So, we're going to be talking about the NFL just in a minute here. We're going to take a quick break and then come back with some NFL and Hope Solo facing another domestic violence charge. We'll talk about that next.
Hey, do you guys want...
Welcome back, everyone, to the Everything Sports Podcast. We are now going to be transitioning into some NFL here as we are about to begin another week of football, week 4, and there are some good games this week as well. But the first thing I want to do is have Jack talk a little bit about who is to start on your fantasy team and guys you should sit. So, Jack, want to take that away for us?
Alright, I got a quick little, small thing, not too big, but here are some starters. First, we got Carlos Williams from Buffalo. He's a running back, but he's come out of nowhere, and he's really showed up. He's a really good player, and I'm excited to see him play this week. Another guy you should start, if DeMarco Murray's out, start Ryan Matthews. Start him. If DeMarco Murray is in, Matthews might be a possible flex, too. And then, last but not least for our starters is Latavius Murray. He's finally got it going. He had a big week last week, and I say he's going to come out with another maybe, 13 points this week. So, depends on your league. So, in my sit list right now, I like the Vikings, but I got to go with Teddy Bridgewater. He's kind of played some really bad football lately. Minnesota's defense kind of been getting them some of the wins lately, and I think Teddy's definitely a sit, especially after such a bad week last week. And one more sit is got to be C.J. Anderson. Right away from the start, people were saying he's a top 5 running back. I denied that. I'm like, no way, he's not. And
yeah, absolutely.
Look at how he's done. Looking at fantasy, he has not done much. He hasn't even scored a touchdown yet compared to wide receiver Brandon Marshall, who scored 3 touchdowns, and he's on the freaking Jets. You just look at that. And so next thing, though, is here's a cut. If you have picked him up, Victor Cruz. So there's been rumors saying, oh, he might return this week. I picked him up in one of my leagues, and then all of a sudden, so he got a calf injury, I don't know, maybe this summer and off season. So he was set to return if there weren't any setbacks, but he kind of aggravated that calf again. So now they're even saying he could be out for just 10 weeks because, he really hurt that calf bad in just some simple individual plays. So I dropped him myself, and I suggest you do too. So, and just one more guy that I think if you're thinking of cutting, keep him. Des Bryant. This is a situation for me too. He got hurt. It sucks, but you know how at one point they're saying, oh, he's going to be back by week 4, and then they're saying now he's going to be out to week 12. Well, now they're saying he could be back by week 7 with this new kind of MRI that they went through. So I'd keep him and just wait a little bit. If it does get extended more than 3 weeks, then I'd probably drop him. But he's a top wide receiver that when he does come in, he'll be good. So yeah, that's basically your fantasy football for this week.
All right, so I'm here to talk about some injuries, and we can discuss these, but we're just going to sort of list off some key injuries for each team. So, starting off with the Arizona Cardinals, Andre Ellington, he's been listed questionable. He's not been playing too much, and his knee, it's been really bugging him. And I think what this means is, if Andre Ellington's out, then who's going to start?
Chris Johnson.
Well, it's obviously Chris Johnson. And so he's
Yeah.
already shown that he can perform on this Cardinals team with that 27 fantasy points. Last week, 2 touchdowns and about 100 yards. So, Chris Johnson really is not a bad, if Andre Ellington still isn't feeling too good, just start Chris Johnson. We know what he can do. And
Yeah,
then
CJ2K.
yeah. Looking at the Falcons, not too many injuries except for Julio Jones, which is definitely one of the biggest injuries. And he's questionable. He's been his toe, hamstring. He's, they're thinking he's going to be probable or questionable. And we've seen Julio Jones just explode, even, with this sort of nagging injury. So I'm not too worried about him. I'd still start him, I guess, if that's really, he's your only option. But, yeah. And, yeah.
Another guy I actually wanted to add to Jack's list of sit and start. He is starting to become a little bit more popular. At this point, he's owned in 85% of leagues, so still a chance maybe that he could be your backup. But for me, I would definitely start Ryan Tannehill. He's really improved over the weeks. In week 1, he did have kind of a rough week, only 11 points in Yahoo fantasy leagues, but he has racked up some solid numbers in the past couple of weeks. So I think Ryan Tannehill certainly is a guy you might want to start, depending on who is your starting quarterback, but definitely give Ryan Tannehill the start if you're comfortable with him.
Yeah, and moving down the list, we got the Buffalo Bills, which is obviously probably the biggest story, is LaShawn McCoy is going to be out for this week, which leaves, as Jack said, Carlos Williams to get his time in the spotlight. And that's really going to affect fantasy owners, and he's a great pickup, and if someone already has him, he might run to town because Rex Ryan really likes to have a run offense, and Carlos Williams has shown he can run, and with McCoy out, most likely for the game on Sunday, that's just going to be a huge factor in that game against, who's it against? I don't even know.
I believe they're playing the Giants this week.
Yeah, the Giants.
Yeah, Buffalo. Yeah. And let me just note out. So, let me list 3 injuries right here. 3 top injuries in the whole NFL. If, out of all of them to play, who do you think is going to play the best if they end up playing this week? Andrew Luck with questionable shoulder, Drew Brees with a questionable shoulder, or DeMarco Murray with a questionable hamstring?
Well, that's tough. And the one person I know out of that list who is not going to perform well is definitely DeMarco Murray. I mean, a lot of people predicted this, that he's just, they outran him. Dallas outran him, and now he's having injury problems, and it was very foreseeable. So I don't think DeMarco Murray's going to have a good week, even if he does start, because, you got Darren Sproles and Ryan Matthews to back him up. And so I just don't think that he's going to have a good week. But someone who I do think would have a good week if they end up playing definitely has to be Andrew Luck. I mean, Jacksonville, they've improved a lot, but, still it's Jacksonville. So
Yeah.
You can't say much about that. So I think Andrew Luck would most likely have the best week out of those 3.
I'm hoping that Jacksonville does not become the Houston Astros type of team that people would make fun of for years and years. And I mean, that's exactly what the Jaguars have been, that type of Astros team. I mean, they certainly haven't made a massive impact yet, but I think good things could be possibly coming in the future for the Jaguars. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Another key injury that is pretty big and looming is, we got to talk about Eddie Lacy. He's probable, but he just hasn't been as good as people thought he would be. And, you got Drew Brees also, like you mentioned, who's just, he's just, something's wrong, and this is sort of a nightmare for the Saints this season so far.
And I wanted to ask one question here before we end our NFL discussion. Who do you guys think, out of all these fantasy players to choose from, who do you think has been the biggest disappointment so far?
Um,
Oh man,
I think
boy.
definitely, for sure, DeMarco Murray. I mean, this guy has just been, he's just not been good, like, to put it in the least. And I just think that, he's not playing as well. And like I said earlier, he was overworked last season, and lots of people got lucky. They were like, oh yeah, DeMarco Murray, he's the best now. But with he's just 14 points for fantasy, 5 points for 0. He's just not consistent. That's what I have to say. And with an Eagles team that's struggling right now.
Do you have any disappointments,
Yeah.
Jack?
I guess I gotta go definitely with Marshawn Lynch, man. He is, boy, for week 1, and this is Yahoo Fantasy, no points per reception here. 12 points, pretty good. That's good. Next week he gets 6 points, that's pretty low for him. Then next week he only gets 2 points. He's got 20 points in just 3 weeks. And another guy, who's also been, just kind of disappointing. I mean, I guess it's, a little tough to decide, but I guess Demaryius Thomas, he's ranked second best wide receiver, and he's only got 30 points in the last, 3 games. And two more guys here. I gotta go with Jeremy Hill on my team. Very disappointing. Good 18 points week 1, and then he got, 2.3 points over the course of next 2 weeks. And
Yeah.
last but not least, well, DeMarco Murray, but C.J. Anderson. I mean,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
well, just terrible. 10 points, for a guy who was supposedly ranked 13th in all of fantasy, football players, which is, that's good. And then, basically 7th in all of running backs, so it's kind of tough.
And for me, I'd have to go with Devontae Adams, wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers. Adams was probably ranked in the top 10, 15 receivers heading into the season. And in week 1, he had about 6 points in Yahoo leagues. Week 2, about 3. And he didn't play in week 3 and 4. And he is expected to be out until about week 8, I believe. But, just a disappointing.
That's why I think, the reason why he was projected so high is because of Jordy Nelson,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Cobb was supposed to take Nelson's place, which he kind of has, but then Devontae Adams was supposed to take Cobb's place, and he did not get anywhere near that.
Well, I
Right.
think the new emerging talent is definitely Ty Montgomery. He's just been great for that team, and he's really caught a lot of passes, and he's a sleeper, definitely. I'm not saying pick him up right now, but, if you need, like, a flex maybe, or just a wide receiver to, like, back someone up, definitely, like, try and get Ty Montgomery.
Yeah.
All right. So that will end our NFL discussion. We are going to be taking a quick break, and when we come back, we will be talking a little bit about some news in the NBA regarding Timberwolves head coach Flip Saunders, and we will also be talking a little bit more about Hope Solo getting in trouble with the law again. So we will let you know when we come back.
Alright, guys, we are back here, Everything Sports Podcast. So, we are going to talk about now just some sports news kind of around. We're not going to go specifically on one sport. We're kind of going to go around and expand about what's going on in the sports world. So, news that just kind of recently was noted. If you have not heard of him, Ryan O'Reilly. He's a NHL hockey player for the Buffalo Sabres. Last year, he played on the Colorado Avalanche, who failed to make the playoffs, but they traded Ryan O'Reilly during the draft, where him and another player, Jamie McGinn, headed to Buffalo. And the 24-year-old just signed a $52.5 million contract, I believe, for 7 years with Buffalo. But the That incident, it was a DUI charge that occurred on July 9th while he was driving his vintage truck into a Tim Hortons, which is basically like a Dunkin' Donuts and that stuff, but up in Canada. And it was located in, I think it's pronounced Lucan, Ontario. And so he basically just drove his truck right into the store. I believe it was later at night, though, when no one was there, so everyone was safe. And he just fled the scene afterwards. But it was just announced that his case will now be adjourned on October 22nd. So it was supposed to come around this area, but they just moved it back. So that's basically what's going on with him. It shouldn't be too big of a consequence, but he will be making his regular season debut with Buffalo on October 8th when they visit the Ottawa Senators. So, I mean, it's really tough, too, for that guy because, I mean, he was a Lady Bing Award, which means he's, sportsmanship around, on and off the ice in the community, and now he's out there getting DUIs. It's just kind of a weird thing to happen to a guy like that.
Yeah. All right, something I want to talk about for sure is this new thing that's happening with John Henson. John Henson on the Bucks signs a 4-year deal worth $45 million, and this is really big for a Bucks team that they've not been good lately, but I think they're really building a good team. And with signing John Henson, who averaged the most blocks of any player in the NBA last season, I think he really earned this, and even more blocks than Anthony Davis, which is really surprising. Matt?
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, I mean, with the signing for the Bucks, it's obviously a big deal. I believe it was 4 years, $44 million. So going to be tough. He averaging about 11 points a game a couple of seasons ago. So it will be a good signing also to be with a guy like Jabari Parker as well in Milwaukee.
Yeah, and just one more thing about the NBA too. I don't know. Just a few things actually about some injuries that are going on coaches now. So, if you have not heard, just happened. Warriors head coach Steve Kerr, he's okay, but he had back surgery and he had to actually kind of just leave for a bit. But now they're saying he should be back in, coaching pretty soon here in the next few days is what it's saying. And one more. A couple more. Another thing about the coaches too is Minnesota Timberwolves head coach Flip Saunders. Apparently now his cancer has become life-threatening, which is very scary.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers go out to the family, and especially Flip Saunders. This is obviously a scary thing. When it was first reported a couple of months ago, it was said that he was going to miss some of the regular season, but now it's reported that he is unlikely to return at all this season. So definitely thoughts and prayers go out to Flip Saunders on that. And going back to Steve Kerr, when this was first reported about his back surgery, it was expected that he was supposed to leave the team indefinitely, but the good news for the Warriors is that he is expected to be back within a few days. So definitely good news there for the Warriors, but not good news for the Timberwolves as well.
Yeah, and speaking of injuries in the NBA, Derrick Rose, another injury. And
Gosh, retire, dude.
That's definitely what a lot of people think. But, Derrick Rose, he's too good, I think. I think that what's happening here is that he's getting these injuries because he's just, too confident after he comes back from one that he's, invincible. But he should know by now that he's not invincible. And especially, even though this is a really small injury, he should be back in about 2 weeks. It's still, you gotta, take care of yourself.
Yeah. All right. So
Yeah.
just one.
I just wanted to touch quick on that Derrick Rose subject. I believe, if I'm correct, I saw this stat on SportsCenter the other day, and it was unbelievable, and I thought I'd share it with you guys. Actually, what the case is that Derrick Rose has missed more games in his career than Tim Parker. He's missed
Tim Duncan.
103 games. Yeah, Tim Duncan. I'm sorry. Um, I'm sorry about that.
It's
No,
okay.
good. No, okay. So remember, like you said, Derrick Rose. I saw this too. Derrick Rose over his what whole I don't know 5-6 year career, maybe less, maybe more, has missed about 103 games. And like you're saying, Tim Duncan, is it 19 or like 20, 21 seasons, has only missed 97. So yeah,
Yeah,
that is just outrageous, man. I mean,
that,
if you're missing that much time early on in your career, it's probably a sign that, I mean, something else really bad could eventually happen.
And sorry to correct, the stat was actually Derrick Rose has missed 103 games in the last 2 seasons,
Uh,
and yeah, it's
wow.
crazy that let's see, Tim Duncan has only missed 97 games in his 18-year career, so that's
Oh,
pretty incredible to see that
yeah.
difference between the two.
All right, and just one more thing about the NBA here, real quick. If you guys haven't heard about the beef between Kevin Durant and Stephen A. Smith from SportsCenter, Stephen A. Smith on ESPN's First Take last Tuesday was saying that Durant was interested in joining the Lakers instead of re-signing with the Thunder at the end of the season, and now Durant has come out and said that is flat out a lie. I mean, he said, "I don't." This is quote. Uh, Kevin Durant, and I quote, "I don't talk to Stephen A. Smith at all." And I mean,
I think
yeah,
I'd have to completely agree.
yeah, I think
yeah,
that Stephen A. Smith is definitely a guy who Stephen A. Smith is definitely a guy who, he's kind of crazy. Like, not to be rude to Stephen A. Smith or anything, but he likes to make those like wild accusations, and that's sort of what makes him famous. But I like how
yeah,
Durant came out with this. I don't talk to Stephen A. Smith at all. And going on quote here, nobody in my family, my friends, they don't talk to Stephen A. Smith, so he's lying. And I
yeah,
think that's probably true. So, yeah.
yeah. All right, well, so I mean, what else? Other news do we have?
I have some news
All right, go ahead,
regarding
take it
Hope
away.
Solo, as we talked about earlier. So, in fact, she's not getting into another crime. What's happening is that her domestic violence charges were reversed after the original court decision that she was guilty, or not guilty, excuse me, not guilty. So now she's full-fledged faced with these charges that had plagued her earlier. What do you guys think about that?
Definitely really disappointing to hear about this. I mean, Hope Solo, obviously, U.S. women's soccer goalie. It's definitely been disappointing to hear about all this stuff going down with her. Hopefully they can find a solution to this. And, that's about all I have to say. It's just disappointing, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of sad how, I mean, someone like that could just come out and just kind of do that stuff, in their life, and it definitely seems like something tough to deal with. So, I definitely hope she stays with USA for a while, because, I mean, without her, I mean, USA's really, really needs her. So, I just hope, the case goes well, and hopefully she ends up all right. So, we'll just have to see.
Yeah, and this is pretty new news. Apparently, Louisville is investigating into the book's damaging sexual allegations involving a basketball team. So, what they're saying is that a coach paid escorts to have sex with their players. So, this is really serious charges, and Louisville basketball, a well-revered program. It's gonna be interesting to see how.
Yeah,
this
actually, I
goes
just
down.
got this as well. This is definitely fresh news. We don't really know much about this, but obviously, you said Louisville basketball. This is one of the perhaps best college basketball programs there is. Definitely going to have to wait and see the details that come forth with this. We'll probably get to into this subject more on Monday. But yeah, this is definitely going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah. All right. So, guys, hope you had a good time. I know we did. So this is the Everything Sports podcast signing out. Say bye, guys.
All right, see you guys.
See ya. Thanks for joining us.